The silence in the dining room felt heavier than the crystal chandelier above our heads. My father's hand trembled as he set down the acceptance letter. Not mine, but Sophia's. My sister sat across from me, tears streaming down her face in what I now recognised as perfectly calculated rivulets. My mother's arm wrapped around her shoulders, pulling her close, whispering reassurances about how proud they were. Columbia University, my father breathed, his voice thick with emotion. My daughter is going to Columbia. I watched them celebrate her triumph, watched them ignore the second envelope that lay unopened beside my untouched dinner plate. Stanford's logo peeked out from the corner. They hadn't even asked. But I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry, because I had already lived this moment once before, and I knew exactly what that unopened letter contained. In my first life, I was Claire Mitchell, the forgotten daughter, the shadow in my own family's story. It started when I was 7. Sophia was 4, small and delicate, with wide eyes that could summon sympathy from stone. I found her in my room one afternoon, my science fair project, a working model of the solar system I'd spent weeks building, smashed on the floor, planets scattered like broken promises. "It was an accident," she whispered, her lip trembling. I stood in the doorway, staring at the wreckage of my work. Before I could speak, my mother appeared behind me. "Claire, why are you making your sister cry?" Her voice was sharp. "She said she was sorry." "But she broke... It was an accident. You're the older one. You should be more understanding." That was the first time I swallowed my words. It wouldn't be the last. The pattern crystallized over the years. Sophia failed a test? I was told to help her study, to share my notes, to explain the concepts I'd already mastered. She forgot to do her homework. I stayed up late helping her finish it. She wanted to join the debate team? I quietly withdrew my application so she could have the spot, because Sophia needs the confidence boost, and you're already so accomplished, Claire. Except I wasn't accomplished in their eyes. I was expected. Every achievement I earned was met with a nod, a brief smile. That's nice, dear." But Sophia's mediocre grades were celebrated like Olympic gold. Her participation trophies lined the mantel, while my academic awards collected dust in my bedroom drawer. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself that love wasn't supposed to be measured or compared. I was a fool. The real betrayal came during my senior year of high school. I had been working with Professor Harrison at the local university on breakthrough research in renewable energy systems, a project that had consumed every spare moment for 2 years. The paper we co-authored was selected for publication in a prestigious scientific journal. I was 17 years old, and I had achieved something remarkable. I told my family at dinner, unable to contain my excitement. My father glanced up from his phone. "That's great, sweetheart." My mother smiled absently. "We're very proud." Then Sophia spoke. "Actually, I need to talk to you all about something." The attention shifted instantly. She had been crying, her makeup smudged in a way that looked almost artistic. I didn't make the cheerleading team. The rest of the evening was devoted to consoling her. My publication was forgotten before dessert was served. But that wasn't the worst part. A month later, I received an email from Professor Harrison. He was apologizing profusely, confusedly, for the mix-up with my research credit. According to the university records, someone had submitted a request to have my name removed from the paper and replaced with S. Mitchell, Sophia Mitchell. My sister had somehow convinced the administrative office that there had been an error, that she was the student researcher, not me. By the time I discovered it, the journal had already gone to print with her name attached to my work. I confronted her in her bedroom, the printed email trembling in my hands. She looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes. "Claire, you don't understand. I needed this. My college applications are weak, and you're already getting into good schools. You don't need one more thing on your resume. You stole my research, my work, 2 years of my life. I didn't steal anything. I just borrowed the credit. You can do it again. You're smart enough. She smiled, as if she'd paid me a compliment. Besides, Mum and Dad said it was fine. My blood turned to ice. You told them? They said you should share with me. That's what families do. I went to my parents that night. I showed them the emails, explained the situation, waited for them to be outraged on my behalf. My father sighed. Claire, your sister made a mistake, but the paper is already published. Making a fuss now will only hurt both of you. Both of us? I did the work. My mother's voice was gentle but firm. You've always been the stronger one, sweetheart. Sophia needs our support more than you do. Can't you just let her have this one thing? One thing, as if it was the first, as if it would be the last. I let it go because I didn't know how to fight them all, because I still believed that if I just worked harder, achieved more, eventually they would see me. College applications came. I applied to Stanford, MIT, Harvard, every top program in my field. Sophia applied to the same schools, padding her application with my stolen research. When the acceptance letters arrived in the spring, I received offers from all of them. Full scholarships, personal notes from department heads who had read my work, the work that still bore her name in the published journal. Sophia was rejected from every school except Columbia, which accepted her into their general studies program, likely swayed by what they thought was her impressive research background. The night I planned to announce my acceptances, Sophia came to me in tears. I only got into one school, she sobbed, Columbia, but Dad said the tuition is too expensive. He can't afford to send both of us to private universities. My stomach dropped. Both of us? He said I should go to state school instead since you got into Stanford with a scholarship. Her tears flowed harder. But Claire, Columbia is my dream. It's all I want. You have so many options. Can't you just go to state school instead? Please, for me? I stood there in the hallway, 18 years old, staring at my sister who had taken everything from me and was now asking for more. And I gave it to her. I told my parents I wanted to stay close to home, that I'd decided to attend the state university. The lie tasted like poison, but I swallowed it. Sophia enrolled at Columbia on our parents' dime, tuition that could have been saved if she'd gone to state school like originally suggested, but that was conveniently forgotten once I'd changed my mind. The next 4 years blurred together in a haze of regret. I excelled at state school, but the opportunities weren't the same. The connections weren't the same. I graduated summa cum laude with degrees in physics and engineering, but without the prestigious university name, doors remained closed. Sophia, meanwhile, barely maintained a 2.8 GPA at Columbia, switched majors 3 times, and graduated with a degree in communications she never used. But she had the Columbia name. She had the photographs at graduation with the iconic campus in the background. She had our parents' pride. I moved to a small apartment in the city, working at a mid-level engineering firm that treated me like an expendable resource. Sophia moved back home, unemployed, still searching for herself, and our parents still called her their success story. The breaking point came 5 years after college, at Sophia's elaborate engagement party. She was marrying Richard Chen, a name I could barely think without feeling sick. The man I'd been quietly dating for 8 months before Sophia met him at a family dinner I'd foolishly brought him to. She'd pursued him relentlessly after that night, calling him for advice, showing up at his office, playing the vulnerable younger sister who needed guidance. Within 3 months, they were dating. Within 6, I was a footnote in a story they rewrote without me. I stood in the corner of the banquet hall my parents had rented, watching Sophia radiate in a designer dress they'd bought her, while our father gave a toast about how proud he was of the woman she'd become. And to think, he said, voice booming with paternal pride, we were worried about her in college, but she proved us all wrong. She found her path, found a wonderful man. Claire, You should take notes from your sister." Laughter rippled through the crowd, kind laughter, fond teasing, but it cut like glass. Richard caught my eye, across the room. For a moment, I thought I saw regret. Then Sophia took his hand, and he looked away. I left the party early. No one noticed. I drove home in the rain, my vision blurred by tears I'd held back for 23 years. The roads were slick. The truck ran the red light. I never saw it coming. I woke up to sunlight streaming through familiar curtains, the smell of my mother's perfume lingering in the air. My childhood bedroom, the walls still painted the pale blue I'd chosen at age 13. The desk still cluttered with high school textbooks and college brochures. I sat up, heart pounding, and caught sight of my reflection in the mirror across the room. 17. I was 17 again, my hands, smaller, unmarked by years of laboratory work and late nights at an office that never appreciated me, reached for the calendar on my nightstand. March of my senior year, 6 weeks before college acceptance letters would arrive. I remembered every detail of my first life with crystalline clarity. The stolen research, the sacrificed Stanford acceptance, the years of invisibility, the engagement party where I was the punchline, my death, and now, impossibly, I was back. For a long moment, I sat in the silence of my old room, processing the impossible gift I'd been given. Then, slowly, certainty settled over me like armor. This time would be different, not because I would fight them, scream at them, demand they see me, but because I would finally understand the truth they taught me so well. I didn't need them to see me. I just needed to see myself. The first change I made was invisible. When Sophia came to me that afternoon, tears streaming down her face about failing her chemistry test, I listened with apparent sympathy. "Can you help me study, Claire? Please, I'm going to fail the class." In my first life, I'd spent 3 days tutoring her, essentially taking her test for her by teaching her exactly what would be on it. This time, I smiled gently. "I can give you my notes, but I have my own studying to do." "Why don't you ask Mr. Patterson for extra credit?" Her tears intensified. "But he doesn't like me." "Then this is a good opportunity to change that." I handed her my notebook, the one with general class notes, not my actual study materials. "You're smart, Sophia. You can figure this out." She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. In a way, I had. This was the language of boundaries, and I'd never spoken it to her before. She ran to our mother, of course. "Claire won't help me." The accusation echoed up the stairs. My mother appeared in my doorway moments later. "Your sister needs you." I gave her my notes. "I have my own work to do." "Claire." Her voice carried that familiar disappointed edge. "This isn't like you." Maybe it should be. I kept my tone light, unbothered. "Sophia is perfectly capable of studying on her own. She just needs to try." My mother left, troubled but uncertain. I'd been the compliant daughter for so long that my quiet refusal didn't register as rebellion, just confusion. Sophia failed her chemistry test, then failed the next one. But that was her choice, her consequence, not mine to fix. The second change came with Professor Harrison. I'd already been working with him on the renewable energy research. We were at the same stage as in my first life, approaching the breakthrough that would make the paper publication worthy. But this time, I was careful. I documented everything, every email, every lab session, every contribution. I saved with timestamps and detailed notes. I set up a separate cloud account that only I could access. I made sure Professor Harrison understood that under no circumstances was anyone else to be given credit or access to my work. "Is everything all right, Claire?" he asked one afternoon, puzzled by my suddenly meticulous record-keeping. "Just being thorough," I said, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I've learned that not everyone respects intellectual property the way they should. He nodded, understanding in his academic way, never suspecting I was protecting myself from my own family. The third change was the most satisfying. When college applications were due, I applied to all the same schools as before. But this time, I didn't tell my family which ones. I listed only my email address for correspondence, not our home address. "Where did you apply?" my mother asked over dinner one night. "A few places. I'll let you know when I hear back." Sophia, meanwhile, applied to her same reach schools, including Columbia, with a significantly weaker application than in my first life. Without my research to steal, her resume was thin. High school clubs she'd quit. Volunteer work she'd never actually done. A personal essay about overcoming adversity that was really about the time she didn't make cheerleading. I said nothing, did nothing, just watched. The thing about changing yourself is that people don't notice until it's too late to stop you. My family thought I was going through a phase, a brief rebellion that would pass once I remembered my role as the responsible daughter, the helpful sister, the one who gave up her needs for everyone else's wants. They kept waiting for me to snap back into place. I never did. Instead, I grew quieter, calmer. I stopped engaging in Sophia's dramas. When she cried, I offered tissues, but not solutions. When she demanded my help, I gave suggestions, but not my time. When my parents tried to guilt me into sacrificing for her, I smiled politely and changed the subject. I became unreachable in a way that looked like maturity. They couldn't punish me for growing up. The acceptance letters began arriving in early April, all to my private email account. Stanford, MIT, Harvard, Caltech, Princeton. Every single one, with a full scholarship. Every single one with personal notes from faculty members who wanted me in their programs. I read each letter in the privacy of my room, alone, and felt something I'd never allowed myself in my first life. Pride. Pure, untainted, unshared pride. I didn't tell my family. Not yet. Sophia's letters arrived by mail since she'd used our home address. I watched her open each one at the dinner table, watched her face crumble with each rejection. "I don't understand," she whispered, staring at the thin envelope from Harvard. My application was strong. It wasn't, but I didn't say that. "There's still Columbia," my mother said hopefully. "That one hasn't come yet." Columbia's letter arrived 3 days later, another thin envelope. Sophia didn't come down for dinner that night. I could hear her crying in her room, could hear my mother's soothing voice through the walls. My father caught me in the kitchen afterward. "Have you heard from anywhere yet?" "A few places." "And?" I met his eyes steadily. "I have options." He nodded, distracted, his mind clearly on Sophia's rejections. "That's good, sweetheart, that's good." He didn't ask what options, didn't ask which schools, didn't ask if I needed help deciding. In my first life, that would have hurt. This time, I just felt free. The college decision deadline was May 1st. I waited until April 30th to tell them. Sophia had already accepted her only offer, the state university, the same one I'd attended in my first life. She'd been devastated for weeks, barely eating, refusing to speak to me as if somehow her rejections were my fault. My parents walked on eggshells around her, trying to rebuild her confidence, assuring her that state school was actually a great opportunity. I waited until dinner, until we were all seated together, before I placed the folder on the table. "I've made my decision about college," I said quietly. My father looked up from his plate. "Which one?" "Stanford. Full scholarship, including stipend for living expenses and research funds." The silence was profound. My mother blinked. "Stanford?" I also got into Harvard, Caltech, and Princeton, all with full scholarships, but Stanford has the best program for my research interests. Sophia's fork clattered against her plate. "You got into Stanford?" and MIT, and Harvard, and we heard you." My father's voice was strange. "Why didn't you tell us you were applying to these schools?" "I did tell you I was applying to colleges. You never asked which ones." My mother's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. "When did these letters come?" "A few weeks ago." "A few weeks?" Sophia's voice pitched high. "You've known for weeks and didn't say anything?" I looked at her calmly. I was making my decision. I didn't need input. "But Stanford?" My mother seemed unable to process it. "That's so far away." 7 hours by plane. I'll visit on holidays." "But what about—" "We can't afford." "It's a full scholarship, Mum. It costs you nothing. In fact, the stipend means I won't need any financial support from you at all." My father sat back in his chair, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "This is sudden." "No, it's not. I've been working toward this for years. You just weren't paying attention." The words hung in the air, honest and devastating. Sophia pushed back from the table, tears streaming down her face. "This is just great. I get rejected from everywhere, and you get into Stanford. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" I met her eyes across the table. "I wanted you to be proud of me. Just once." Then I stood and left the room. The weeks that followed were uncomfortable. My parents didn't know how to process the shift in their family dynamic. For 17 years, I'd been the steady one, the predictable one, the daughter who didn't need attention. Now I was leaving, really leaving, and they were finally realizing what they'd overlooked. My mother tried to close the distance. "We've always been proud of you, Claire." "Have you?" I asked gently. "What's my favourite subject? What research have I been doing for the past 2 years? What do I want to study at Stanford?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know. "It's okay, Mom," I said, and I meant it. "I'm not angry anymore. I just understand now." "Understand what?" "That I can't make you see me. I can only make sure I see myself." She cried that night. I heard her through the walls, heard my father's low voice trying to comfort her. I felt sad for them, in a distant way. Sad that they'd missed knowing me, sad that their love had always been conditional on my invisibility. But I wasn't sad for myself. Not anymore. Sophia stopped speaking to me entirely. She moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding any room I occupied. At first, I thought she was angry about the colleges. Then, I found her in my room one afternoon, going through my desk. "What are you doing?" My voice was calm. She spun around, guilty. "Nothing. I was just looking for something to take," I finished. "Another achievement to claim as your own." Her face flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The research paper, 2 years of my work that you tried to put your name on. That was a mistake." "No, it wasn't. It was deliberate. You convinced Mom and Dad to let you steal my work because you thought I wouldn't fight back." I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me. "You were right. I didn't fight back. But that doesn't mean I forgot." "Claire, please, I was desperate. My application was weak. And that was your problem to solve. Not mine to fix by letting you steal from me." She sat down on my bed, crying again, always crying. "I can't compete with you. I've never been able to. You're smarter, more talented, more everything. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow?" I stared at her, this sister I'd sacrificed so much for, and felt nothing but pity. "You were never in my shadow, Sophia. You were standing in my light, blocking it from reaching me, and then complaining you couldn't see. That's different. I didn't mean to—" "Yes, you did. You chose to take what was mine instead of building something of your own. You chose to let Mum and Dad make me smaller so you could feel bigger. Those were choices." "What do you want me to say?" her voice broke. That I'm sorry? I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I don't want your apology. I want you to understand that I'm done. Done helping. Done sacrificing. Done making myself less so you can feel like more. I opened the door, a clear dismissal. You're going to state school. You're going to have to work hard for the first time in your life, and I won't be there to carry you. She left my room crying. I didn't follow. Graduation came in June. I gave the valedictorian speech, an honour I'd also earned in my first life but had been talked into declining so Sophia wouldn't feel bad about her class rank. This time, I accepted it. I stood at the podium in my blue gown, looking out at the sea of families, and spoke about second chances and the courage to choose yourself. We often think that love means sacrifice, I said, my voice carrying across the gymnasium. And sometimes it does. But sometimes sacrifice becomes erasure. Sometimes giving everything to others means we lose ourselves entirely, and that's not love, not for them and certainly not for us. I saw my parents in the third row. My mother was crying, keying. My father's expression was unreadable. The greatest gift we can give the people who love us, I continued, is the fullest version of ourselves, not the diminished version, not the convenient version, the real one, even if it makes them uncomfortable, even if they don't know what to do with it at first. Sophia wasn't at my graduation. She'd claimed she was sick, but we both knew the truth. She couldn't bear to watch me shine. The summer before college, I worked at Professor Harrison's lab, completing our research. The paper was published in August, with my name alone in the author credits, exactly as it should be. My father brought it up once, casually, over breakfast. Saw your name in that science journal. Your professor emailed me the article. Professor Harrison thought you might want a copy. He was quiet for a moment. It's impressive work, Claire. Thank you. Did you need help with any of it? The question beneath the question. Had Sophia been involved? No, I did it alone, the way it was meant to be. He nodded slowly, understanding something he couldn't articulate. My mother tried harder. She asked about Stanford, about my courses, about my plans. I answered politely, but without the eagerness I'd once had for their attention. I'd learned the truth that children of neglect eventually discover. Sometimes the people who should love you most are simply not capable of loving you the way you deserve. And that's not your failure. It's theirs. But you don't have to keep trying to earn something they can't give. The week before I left for Stanford, my mother came to my room with an old photo album. I was going through these, she said softly, sitting on my bed. Look at this one. She showed me a picture from my 8th birthday. I was holding up a science kit I'd asked for, beaming at the camera. Sophia, 4 years old, was crying in the background because the attention wasn't on her. I remember this day, my mother said. I remember being frustrated with Sophia for crying, for not letting you have your moment. She touched the photo gently. I don't know when I stopped protecting your moments, Claire. When I started thinking your strength meant you didn't need me. I always needed you, Mum. I just learned not to ask. I'm sorry. Her voice broke. I'm so sorry. I failed you. I see that now. I took her hand, this woman who'd hurt me so deeply, who'd chosen my sister over me again and again. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't mean things go back to how they were. What does it mean? It means I release you from the debt. I'm not carrying it anymore. But I'm also not putting myself back in a position to be hurt again. She understood. I saw it in her eyes, the knowledge that she'd lost something irretrievable, not because I was taking it away, but because she'd never valued it when she had it. Stanford was everything I dreamed and more. I excelled immediately, finding professors who recognized my potential and peers who challenged me. I joined research teams, published papers, built friendships with people who saw me, actually saw me for who I was. I called home once a week, kept the conversations light and surface level. My parents tried to deepen the connection, but I maintained my boundaries. Sophia and I barely spoke. I heard about her through my parents' updates. She was struggling at state school, failing classes, partying too much. She changed majors, changed friend groups, changed everything except her fundamental expectation that someone else would fix her life. I felt nothing about it. No satisfaction, no guilt, no responsibility. Her life was hers to build or destroy. I was done being her safety net. In my sophomore year, Professor Martinez approached me about a grant opportunity, funding for a continuation of the renewable energy research I'd started in high school. It was competitive, prestigious, and came with resources most graduate students would envy. I applied. I won. The announcement was published in the university newsletter. My parents called, actually proud this time, and I accepted their congratulations graciously. Then Sophia called. "Claire?" Her voice was small. "I saw the news about your grant. That's really amazing. Thank you. I was thinking maybe I could transfer to Stanford, be closer to you, we could—" "No." Silence. "Sophia, you need to build your own life, your own achievements, your own identity that isn't tied to me. But I miss you. I miss having a sister. You never had a sister. You had a resource to exploit. There's a difference. That's not fair. It's completely fair. But here's what else is fair. You have the chance to become someone real now. Someone who earns their accomplishments. Someone who doesn't need to steal or manipulate or cry to get what they want." I softened my voice slightly. "I actually hope you find that person, Sophia. For your sake, not mine." I ended the call before she could respond. My junior year, I met Daniel in my advanced physics seminar. He was brilliant, kind, and saw me immediately, not as potential, not as utility, but as an equal. We fell into a relationship that was easy and real and nothing like the complicated dynamics of my family. When I told him about my past, about my first life, he listened without judgment. "You really think you travelled back in time?" he asked, curious rather than skeptical. "I know it sounds impossible. So does quantum entanglement until you understand it." He smiled. "I think the universe gives us what we need. Maybe you needed the chance to choose yourself. And now? Now you're not just choosing yourself. You're building yourself. There's a difference." He was right. Every day at Stanford, I became more of who I was meant to be. The grief of my first life faded, replaced by the joy of living authentically. I graduated summa cum laude with dual degrees in physics and engineering. Stanford offered me a full ride for my PhD program. I accepted. My family came to my graduation. Sophia came too, reluctant but present. She'd finally settled on a degree in business administration and was working as an assistant at a local company. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. She seemed smaller somehow, less performative. After the ceremony, she approached me alone. "I'm proud of you, Claire. I mean that." "Thank you. I know I ruined things between us. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that watching you succeed, really succeed, without me dragging you down, it's made me realize how much I wasted." She looked down at her hands. "I'm trying to be better. Not for you, for me." I studied her. This sister who'd taken so much from me, and saw someone finally learning the lesson I'd learned at 17. You can't build a life on someone else's foundation. I hope you find what you're looking for, Sophia. I really do. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it wasn't hatred either. It was release, the final letting go of the resentment that had poisoned my first life. She nodded, understanding she wouldn't get more than that, and walked away. My parents tried to organise a family dinner, but I declined gently. I have plans with my friends, but maybe next time I'm home. The maybe was honest. I might reconnect with them eventually, on my terms, if they continued the growth I'd seen glimpses of, but I'd never again sacrifice my peace for their comfort. That night, my Stanford friends threw me a party. Daniel presented me with a custom-made lab coat embroidered with Dr. Mitchell soon on the pocket. Too presumptuous? He asked, grinning. Perfectly presumptuous. I kissed him. Thank you. We danced and laughed and celebrated not just my graduation, but the life I'd built, the life I'd chosen. As I looked around at the people who loved me for exactly who I was, who celebrated my light instead of trying to dim it, I felt the final piece of my old pain dissolve. 5 years later, I defended my dissertation on revolutionary renewable energy systems that could reshape how the world powered itself. The research was groundbreaking, entirely my own, and recognised internationally. I accepted a position at MIT as an assistant professor. At 27, I was one of the youngest faculty members they'd ever hired. Daniel proposed on the Charles River with a ring he'd designed himself, elegant, unique, perfect. I said yes. My family received a wedding invitation. They came, respectful of the boundaries I'd maintained, proud in their own bewildered way of the daughter they'd finally learned to see. Sophia came alone. Her boyfriend had broken up with her recently, and she looked tired but genuine. "You look happy," she said when she hugged me. "I am. I'm glad. You deserve it." The wedding was small, intimate, filled with people who'd been part of my real life, the life I'd built after returning to myself. During my toast, I didn't mention my family's failures. I didn't recount the betrayals or the pain. I simply thanked everyone who'd helped me become who I was meant to be. "Life gives us choices," I said, looking out at the faces of people I loved. "Sometimes those choices are about who we let define us, and the bravest thing we can do is choose to define ourselves." Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. Later, when the dancing began and the celebration swelled around us, my mother approached me. "Claire, I need to say something. I've needed to say it for years." I waited. I was wrong about everything, about prioritizing Sophia because I thought you were fine, about taking your strength for granted, about not seeing you. Tears tracked down her face. "You were always the extraordinary one, and I made you feel invisible. I'll regret that for the rest of my life." "I know you will," I said softly, "and I've forgiven you. But Mum, I didn't become extraordinary despite being invisible to you. I became extraordinary because I finally learned to see myself." She nodded, understanding the distinction. "I hope," I continued, "that you and Dad have learned to see Sophia too. Really see her, not the version you wanted her to be. She deserves that." "We're trying. She's growing. Slowly. Good. That's all any of us can do." My mother hugged me then, and I let her, feeling the complicated mix of love and loss that comes from surviving family. As she walked away, Daniel appeared at my side. "You okay?" "More than okay." I leaned into him. "I'm free." Years passed in a beautiful blur of achievement and joy. My research earned international recognition. I won awards, gave keynote speeches, mentored students who reminded me of my younger self, brilliant and overlooked. Daniel and I built a life of equals, of partnership, of mutual celebration. We had 2 children, both daughters, and I taught them the lesson I'd learned in blood and time, that their worth wasn't tied to anyone's recognition, that their light shouldn't be dimmed for anyone's comfort, that they could choose themselves without guilt. I saw my family occasionally, on holidays and special events. The relationships remained cordial but distant. Sophia and I were never close again, but we reached a place of mutual respect. She built a modest life, found work she enjoyed, even started therapy to address the patterns our parents had instilled. I was proud of her for that, in the way you're proud of someone who finally stops running from their reflection. My parents aged into regret, the kind that comes from realizing too late what you sacrificed in the name of balance. They loved my daughters fiercely, perhaps trying to correct their mistakes through a new generation. I let them, with supervision, with boundaries, but with grace. Because I'd learned that holding on to anger was just another form of letting them control me. On my 35th birthday, I received an email from Professor Harrison, my old mentor from high school. Claire, I wanted you to know that your original research, the paper we published when you were 17, has been cited in a new breakthrough study on renewable energy. They credit it as foundational work. I thought you'd want to know that your beginning became someone else's launchpad. That's the best legacy a scientist can have. I sat in my MIT office, looking out at the campus where I now taught, and thought about the two lives I'd lived. In the first, I'd been erased, diminished, forgotten. In the second, I'd become unforgettable, not through revenge, not through destruction of those who'd hurt me, but through the simple, revolutionary act of refusing to disappear. That night, I came home to Daniel cooking dinner while our daughters did homework at the kitchen table. "Mom," the youngest called out, "I got 100 on my science test." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Dad said we should celebrate. Is that okay?" I looked at my family, this life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal and the gift of a second chance, and smiled. "It's more than okay. Your achievements always deserve celebration." Because I'd learned the most important lesson: the opposite of being overlooked isn't being seen by those who refuse to look. It's learning to see yourself so clearly that their blindness becomes irrelevant. I didn't destroy my family by choosing myself. I outgrew them, and in the space I'd once reserved for their approval, I built something they could never take away, a life that was authentically, irrevocably mine. My victory was never revenge. It was becoming untouchable, not through cruelty or distance, but through the unshakable knowledge of my own worth. They tried to make me small. I chose to become infinite, and that choice saved me.